Welcome in to the PFF College Football Show. Max Chadwick alongside Dalton Wasserman here, previewing and predicting the college football playoff first round. Dalton, we finally made it to the first round of the playoff. We've got 4 games to do very in-depth previews here on this show. Actually, our most in-depth preview that we've done all season. Dalton, for each of these 4 games, we're going to preview a matchup for the passing game and the run game for both offenses in each game against the pass defense and run defense for both defenses too. So it's going to be our biggest preview show yet. I'm really excited to break down these 4 games today.
You know what I like about it? No more committees, no more debates, no more arguing. There's 12 teams in. 8 of them are going to play this weekend, and we just get to play football and get into these one-game scenarios where whoever comes out the winner, that's who moves on, and that's just the easiest way to do it, isn't it?
Harb's asking, did you get bought out by Crumble Cookie today? Are you making fun of me for what happened to my Penn State Indy Lions this offseason?
Now that you mention it, yes.
You're kind of decked out in the all-blue PFF gear right now, dude.
We're working with it. We had to get a playoff uni going, you know? Absolutely. You can't just walk in with a regular season outfit here.
Our video lead, Tyler, put in our chat that if I bought the all-orange PFF stuff, it could do Dumb and Dumber.
Well, absolutely. There it is.
Look at
That to be honest with you, when I had hair, that did kind of pretty much look like us. That's actually
Is your hair ever
pretty
that
accurate.
long, actually?
A long time ago it was actually.
Really?
In high school, I used to have way too long hair.
I need those pictures. I can't believe you actually said yes to that.
It was ugly, like way back in high school. Yeah.
I need those pictures.
No,
dude.
it wasn't great. It wasn't great.
Is this merch available for consumers, or is this just us?
I think so. I actually don't know. We
Okay,
got to
I don't want
figure
to
out the
advertise
answer.
it as if it's not available to everyone. But
let's find.
I
that
just was let know of this today. I actually didn't even know we had all this new merch out today.
I just walked in here with a new fit, and Max was just like, "What is this? You decked it out for the playoffs? What's going on here?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I
might have like the Kalani Satake look going on
maybe
right now, man.
That's true. It is kind of the BYU.
The BYU Royal Blue, yeah. I kind of love it, dude.
It is. Hey, whatever works, you know. Crumble cookies, man. Listen.
You're making fun of me.
I know they're not your best friends right now, but hey, listen,
you
got Matt Campbell.
We got a good coach.
You're gonna be fine. See, you're gonna come in. Are you gonna come in the Iowa State red just to?
I could.
Make
fun of them. It'd be tough. I might wear the Syracuse orange though, and actually do the Dumb and Dumber for Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, that does make sense too. Okay,
that could be good too.
We'll figure it out.
Appreciate Harbs in the chat saying amazing stuff on the breakdowns yesterday too. Yeah, we actually did a couple breakdowns. If you want to see, we're gonna break down more in these game previews, but we did Ty Simpson breakdown, kind of how he's been so good against the blitz early on in the year and how he's struggled as of late and how that's going to be a huge matchup to watch, obviously, against Oklahoma. And, of course, baby Jesus, Malachi Toney, and how he's one of the most electric players in college football, too. So appreciate Harbs for watching that. If you want to see, you can see those on the channel, too. So Dalton,
after this show, of course. After this show. Watch this first, and then you can go over there and get a further breakdown.
I have a 3-game lead on you, Dalton. I'm 110-52. You're 107-55. Right now, going into the playoffs.
To a point, I might have to start taking some chances here.
We'll see. We'll see if we differ in any of these games right now. I want to remind you guys that all the stats that we're going to talk about today here live on this show are available with a PFF Plus subscription. And right now, that subscription is 30% off when you use the promo code HOLIDAY30. Holiday season's coming up very, very fast. If you want to find out the best gift to get a loved one, it's a PFF Plus subscription. Again, promo code HOLIDAY30 to get access to all the same grades, data, and insights that every NFL team and every college football team, including all 12 of these teams, will be using in preparation for the college football playoff. And you get access to the fantasy football tools and the betting tools that can put a lot of money in your pocket, too. Again, Holiday 30 to get 30% off a PFF Plus subscription today. All right, first game of our 4-game preview for the first round of the playoff. By the way, at the end of this show, we're going to do a bracket prediction, Dalton. Show the entire bracket of what we think is going to happen in the playoff this year.
Here we go. We got separate brackets, and we'll see if those individual game picks eventually start changing based on what we see. But we each made entire brackets. We're going to see how right we can be on those as well. It's always fun.
And you can
certainly, you got to think it's going to be a little better than our preseason predictions.
Oh God, I hope so.
I would think.
God, I hope so. Yeah. It was not great for preseason predictions. But also, if you want to join our Bowl Mania group, I know a couple games already happened. You'll miss out, of course, on predicting those games, but you can still join the Bowl Mania group right now and predict the rest of the games in bowl season, including the playoff games that we're talking about here today, too. All right, first up in our 4-game preview, as I fumble with the mic right now, Trevor Sikkema always messes up the mic, dude. I gotta talk to him. Whenever he sits in this chair,
it's a long show on the Mondays. We're in here for almost 3 hours. Man, he's got to figure out how to stabilize it. He's very particular with how he likes to do things.
He is. All right, first game in our 4-game preview now. Number 9 Alabama at number 8 Oklahoma. Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC and ESPN. The winner of this game moves on to the quarterfinals to take on top-seeded Indiana in the Rose Bowl. It's a rematch for Alabama and Oklahoma. They played each other back in Week 12. The Sooners went on the road in that game and beat Alabama by a 23-21 final score. Oklahoma now, of course, hosts this game against Alabama. 10-2 record on the year for Oklahoma, playing in their first playoff under head coach Brent Venables, their first playoff appearance since 2019, back when Jalen Hurts was their quarterback. Alabama, meanwhile, has a 10-3 record on the year. They lost in the SEC championship game to Georgia. It's also the Crimson Tide's first playoff appearance under head coach Kalen DeBoer, and their first in 2 years. The winner of this game moves on to the quarterfinals and, again, takes on number 1 Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Dalton, let's start off with the visiting team, the Alabama. You have the passing game for Alabama against Oklahoma's pass defense. Again, I mentioned before, Ty Simpson against those blitzes should be a really pivotal matchup in this game.
It is, I would argue, it is the biggest matchup in this entire game is Ty Simpson versus Brent Venables. Venables got the better of Simpson back in the regular season, just as he got the better of Jalen Milroe last year when Oklahoma defeated Alabama. And this has really been a problem for Ty Simpson throughout the second half of the year when you don't have the run game, and you're going to go over that side of it for the Crimson Tide. But when you don't have the run game to stay ahead of schedule, you get these defensive coordinators who are getting really, really aggressive when it comes to sending blitzes at Ty Simpson. Blake Baker at LSU did it. Brent Venables did it for Oklahoma. Glenn Schumann in the SEC title game blitzed Ty Simpson more than 60% of the time. And when you go back to this exact matchup, nobody blitzed him more than Venables. On 2/3 of his dropbacks, Ty Simpson was blitzed in that game. Extra pressure, simulated pressure, rotated coverages. We show this in our breakdown that we have in a separate video here, that not only does Brent Venables send pressure, but he knows where Ty Simpson wants to go in the face of pressure with his hots, with different reads on the weak side of formations. Look at that, 46.6 passing grade against the blitz against Oklahoma in the first matchup. 4 sacks, 3 turnover-worthy plays, including the early pick 6 that really set things in Oklahoma's favor early. So if you're Kalen DeBoer, if you're Ryan Grubb, if you're Ty Simpson, you need to have a better plan for pressure. And it wasn't just the Oklahoma game. It's been several games where teams have figured out, hey, if we blitz this team, and to me, when I watch this tape, it's not really even the fault of the offensive line. They've still been solid, but you just get these overload blitzes where there's one extra. They're making the backs protect. And then again, they know on the back end where Ty Simpson wants to go with the football because he's not that athletic. He's a decent athlete, but he's not athletic enough to consistently improvise throughout 60 minutes of a ball game. So when you look at the task that Simpson and Grubb and DeBoer have in this game, they have to find a way to find new answers in the passing game to beat Brent Venables' blitz packages. But also, I think 2 things they need to do as well. One, you're going to mention this, find any way you can to run the football. And 2, I'd run a little bit more tempo because Alabama, they're one of the highest time of possession teams in the country. Despite being a pass-heavy offense, they've really been a ball control team. I think they need to speed things up and maybe even get in their 2-minute offense a little earlier in the game, because when you do go up-tempo, you take away Brent Venables' ability to go with those blitz packages in every passing situation. But to me, that is the matchup of this entire game, is Ty Simpson versus Brent Venables and how aggressive Venables is going to be. If it's as aggressive as last time, which I think it will be, then Simpson's going to have to find answers quickly from the pocket.
By the way, if you want to see a full tape breakdown from Dalton and I, breaking down just Ty Simpson against those blitzes and what was so good early on in the year and what changed in the second half of the year and why he struggled against the blitzes, check it out here on this channel. Now, Dalton, in that video, you kind of talk about, hey, Ty Simpson has struggled in the second half of the year against blitzes, but also Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb have struggled to find answers for their quarterback against blitzes too, right?
There are times to me when it's gotten predictable when it comes to their counterpunches with blitzes. You see a lot of the same looks from Alabama's offense as you did the first half of the year when things were working, right?
Yeah.
But you're seeing them go with the same concepts, and now they're not working because on the back end and the secondary, teams know where the ball is going, and they're changing, especially the rotations and coverages. And 2, to me, again, it's too slow a tempo. They need to go up tempo with this and just get teams to not be so tempted to be in those looks. The offense, I understand it's a ball control offense. That's how they've won a lot of these games, but they need to pick up the pace. So Venables he just doesn't have that time, the whole 30, 35 seconds in the play clock to set these things up.
Yeah, so I have the Alabama run game against Oklahoma's run defense, and it's very, very simple. Can Alabama find anything on the ground in this one? Because it's no secret, the Crimson Tide have had a really bad run game this year. They only average 4 yards per carry, which is the third fewest in the Power 4. Only a 9% explosive run rate on the year. It's the 9th worst mark in the entire country. Jam Miller got hurt, and he missed the SEC title game against Georgia with a lower leg injury, although he should be good to go for the playoffs. So that will be a welcome addition to Alabama in their backfield. But even with Jam Miller, they have struggled to run the football this year. Oklahoma, meanwhile, has been one of the best teams in the country at defending the run. They're 5th in the country in EPA per run allowed and in yards per carry allowed, only allowing 3.5 yards per carry this year. And when Oklahoma beat Alabama about a month ago, the Sooners only allowed 108 total rushing yards at a 3.7 yard average. The Crimson Tide only had 2 forced missed tackles in that game too. Alabama has to perform better on the ground in this game, or else the entire burden of the offense will be on Ty Simpson's shoulders.
And I think there's 2 problems, especially when you're talking about facing such a fast Oklahoma defense. One, Alabama's run game is not particularly creative, right? It's basically just get behind this offensive line and see how far we can push. And 2, with Simpson as your quarterback, this is the difference between having him and a guy like Milroe last year, where yes, Simpson is a better pure passer, but Simpson is not generally an option threat. Maybe once or twice he can keep it on a read option, but you're not consistently stressed as a defense by Ty Simpson's legs, which allows all the defenders in the front 7 to just key in on the football more than they would have to stay disciplined to their assignments and their gaps when it's true option football at times, like we're going to talk about on the other side of this matchup with John Mateer. But those are the problems, and they're going to just need the play calling to be a little bit better. Again, I think this is a moment where tempo could help, and this offensive line has to they can't just play a decent game up front. They need to dominate up front if Alabama's going to run the football.
So let's move over to the Oklahoma offense now, Dalton. You have the Oklahoma run game against Alabama's run defense. What should we know in that matchup?
So it's kind of the same old conversation we always have with the Crimson Tide, and the concern is the option game and the ability of John Mateer to keep the football, whether it's through the design quarterback runs or the read option game here. So Oklahoma runs either an option or a design quarterback run about half the time, about half their run plays, okay? And Alabama, when you look at the surface level grading, things like that, they're very good against the run, right? I believe a top 10 to 15 run defense grade, I should say, in total. But when you isolate this down now to plays with options and quarterback runs, it's a little more average. They're 32nd in run defense grade. They're 49th in yards per carry allowed. They're 86th in explosive run rate allowed when there's either an option on or a design quarterback run on, right? And obviously, again, Oklahoma, this is about half of their run game involves either an option or a design quarterback run from a tier. You get quarterback counters and things like that as well. So to me, when I'm watching this Alabama team, and we've talked about this for 2 years now, whether it's John Mateer, Lenoris Sellers, any other mobile Nico Iamaleava last year against Tennessee, any mobile quarterback that Alabama plays, it's an extra task, and it's those second-level defenders, the 3 linebackers, Deontay Lawson, Justin Jefferson, Nakai Hill-Green, and then the safety Bray Hubbard, who is so often floating in the box with those guys. Those are the ones that have to have the eye discipline. They have to see where the offensive line is going. They have to freeze for just an extra half second and stay disciplined in their gap in case John Mateer goes out the back door in these run schemes. Those guys have got to play their best game because Oklahoma, they want to slow it down. They want to run the football, and they can do that with their quarterback, John Mateer, as a threat in the run game. That second level, that group of defenders is going to be the key to Alabama's defense in this game.
Yeah, I'm looking at Oklahoma's passing game against Alabama's pass defense, and really just can John Mateer provide more as a passer now he's had a few weeks off to kind of help heal his hand injury, because John Mateer, he was the Heisman Trophy betting favorite through the first few weeks of the year. 85.5 passing grade through week 4 as a top 20 mark in the country, but then he broke his hand against Auburn, and his production dropped off a cliff. Since week 7, when he got hurt, He has a 42.5 passing grade. There's about like 160 quarterbacks in the country that qualified for that. He has the fourth worst of those like 160 quarterbacks in the country in passing grade since week 7. That includes a 51.2 passing grade against Alabama, where he only had 138 passing yards and no touchdowns in the win. And the Crimson Tide, they really haven't had much of a pass rush this year, but they've had one of the best secondaries in college football, 91.7 coverage grade, tied for 5th in the country. All 5 of Alabama's starting defensive backs have at least a 70 coverage grade this year. So 3 weeks off now for John Mateer. Hopefully his hand is fully healed, and maybe we'll see the John Mateer that we saw early on in the season. Because Dalton, if he's the same guy that we've seen last 7 or 8 weeks so far this year, Oklahoma's offense, it really only scored 16 points against Alabama, because one of the touchdowns for Oklahoma in that game was a pick six, of course. Oklahoma's offense could struggle once again.
And only 17 points each game in each of the last 2 against Missouri and LSU as well. And basically this Oklahoma passing game, to put it in baseball terms, it's a whole lot of strikeouts and the occasional home run with Isaiah Satania, right? That's the one guy with track speed who can really make the big play that flips the field, right? He's done it all season. You know, you get an occasional play over the middle to Jaron Kanek to move the chains. Deion Burks is also still a factor, but it's just been inconsistent all the way around for Oklahoma on offense, really both their run and passing game. But the passing game, especially since Mateer came back from the surgery. But look, this team, they keep themselves in close games. They hit maybe 2 or 3 home runs per game on offense, and that's all it takes for them, whether that's, Isaiah Satania in the passing game or maybe a Xavier Robinson carry in the run game. That's how they've been getting by, and all year I've been equating them, calling them the Pittsburgh Steelers, basically, of college football. That's how they've won games, but they certainly need something out of their passing game. It's very hard to win every week when you're getting 130, 150 passing yards, especially in college football.
Yeah. All right, Dalton, ultimately, who will win the first-round game of the college football playoff, and who will move on to the Rose Bowl to take on number 1 Indiana?
This is tough because, you've got an Oklahoma team that is so basically rooted in their identity, and their identity is Brent Venables and this defense, right, and just playing these low-scoring, fist-fight, ugly games. And then you have an Alabama team who, let's be real, they have not played their best football for probably the better part of 5 or 6 games. I think this is going to be tight. I think this is going to be a defensive game. Obviously, down in Norman, it's going to be a loud environment. But I'm not one right now who's trusting this inconsistency on this Alabama offense. I don't like what I see. They need to find new answers for the blitz. I'm going to take Oklahoma 20-17. I think their defense gets it done one more time, and it feels to me when I watch them, and I know it's 2 games in the last 2 years, but they've got Alabama's number. And unless Alabama makes serious changes, either A, to run the football a lot better, or B, in their passing game over the last couple weeks, if they have found some answers, something new in the passing game for Ty Simpson to work with that throws Venables off, especially early in the game, right? I think getting off to a good start for this Alabama offense is going to be important, but I'm going to take the Sooners. I think it's just their defense to me right now is the most consistent unit on the field. Not that Alabama's defense isn't good, but I just think that Oklahoma defense can really control the pace of the game here at home.
So you have a 20-17. I have a 21-17 with Alabama actually beating Oklahoma. I think they will get revenge on the Sooners. I know Kalen DeBoer is 0-2 against Brent Venables in Oklahoma. But this should be a very low-scoring game. I do think Alabama wins. I trust the Alabama offense more than Oklahoma's offense right now. I just think Alabama, there's at least a chance that Ty Simpson could have a decent game out there. I don't know about John Mateer in this offense for Oklahoma right now. So I think Alabama will win. Be a very low-scoring game. I think it'll be 21-17, probably a coin flip game, but I think Alabama will get revenge on Oklahoma and move on to play Indiana in the Rose Bowl in the college football playoff quarterfinals. All right. Let's move on to the Saturday slate now of the first round of the college football playoff. First game on Saturday is a big one. Number 10 Miami at number 7 Texas A&M, noon Eastern time on ABC and ESPN. The winner of this game will move on to the Cotton Bowl in the quarterfinal round to take on the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes. It's a game between the only 2 teams that beat Notre Dame this year, which ultimately got Miami into the playoff with a 10-2 record, because Miami had the same record, of course, as Notre Dame, and it's a pretty similar resume to Notre Dame too. That head-to-head victory that Miami had over Notre Dame got them over Notre Dame, who was the final team left out of the college football playoff. The Aggies, meanwhile, also made their first playoff in school history, just like Miami did this year too. Texas A&M with an 11-1 record on the year. They started the year off with a perfect 11-0 record on the season before losing in the finale to Texas. Again, whoever wins this game move on to the Cotton Bowl in the quarterfinal round to take on Ohio State.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The road for each of these two teams to get here, especially with Miami having to scratch and claw all the way to the end, and eventually, you mentioned it, that head-to-head matchup against Notre Dame really was the biggest factor in it. And then Texas A&M, I think, really in an interesting spot here, starting 11-0 and then losing in Austin to the Texas Longhorns, obviously the rival, missing out on the SEC title game. So a couple weeks to sit here and stew on it, but they get to go back home to the 12th man down there, and this is obviously going to be a really fun game between two really good football teams.
I'm really excited to watch this game, Dalton. Start with the Miami offense first. You have the Miami passing game against Texas A&M's pass defense. What should we know in that matchup?
So the more you watch this Miami offense, and they've leaned into it more as the year has gone on, it is so centered around the true freshman sensation receiver, Malachi Toney. And you just look at all of the different things he does for this offense. He really is, when you talk about a guy who is, and the coaches talk about all the time, screen games and RPOs and guys who can win after the catch. Those guys are extensions of the run game. That really is the case with Toney, right? When he has the most catches and yards on screen passes in the country this year. He's a vital part. Generally, when they run RPOs, he is the pass part of that with whatever, if it's a quick out, if it's a screen, if it's a glance route over the middle, however they want to get him the football, they can do that. But he can beat man coverage. He can get vertical. He has a good understanding of zone coverage. He's just such a dominant force in their passing game. And already as a true freshman, it's been unbelievable to see his development. And they've leaned more and more into him this season as the year has gone on. But third in the nation in receiving grade, a 90.5 receiving grade, third in yards after catch, second in missed tackles force, second in slot receiving grade. You're going to see him a lot matched up with the nickel corner Tyreek Chappelle for Texas A&M's defense. That's going to be a one-on-one matchup you see a lot, and you see again down there on the bottom, most yards in the country on screens. Now, an interesting stat for Texas A&M, two of them, all right? Seventh fewest yards per attempt allowed on targets to slot receivers, and the fewest yards per attempt allowed on screen passes in the nation this season, 2.4 yards per attempt. They rally to the football. They give you a lot of different zone looks where they drop off and rotate, and they get their first-level defenders, especially where they want to. But that's the effort that it's going to take to tackle Toney. If you try to leave somebody out there one-on-one to tackle him, it's probably not going to happen. Mike Elko's defense has got to rally to the football. They have to be aware of at all times where Malachi Toney is on the field, because he can line up anywhere. It could be on the slot, it's occasionally on the outside, it's in the backfield, it's kind of lined up in this condensed look as an inline guy in these bunch formations. He can throw the football. We know there's going to be 2 or 3 trick plays involving him as well. So to me, the focus in the passing game just has to be all eyes in the back seven of this defense on Malachi Toney at all times, because if there's a play where you forget where he is or you lose him in motion, you're going to have a serious problem after the catch.
Just like the Ty Simpson video, there's also a video that we did, a film breakdown on Malachi Toney and what makes Baby Jesus one of the most electric players and one of the most fun players to watch in the country this year too. So check that out on the channel after, of course, this show. And also, Dalton, I think if they take away Malachi Toney and those short screens and all the other short passes that they have to him are gone, that A&M pass rush against Miami's offensive line, that's going to be a must-see matchup, because right now Miami has the 4th best pass blocking grade in the country. Texas A&M has the 8th best pass rush grade in the country. And we know how much Carson Beck likes to operate from a clean pocket, so I think that's going to be a key matchup to watch too.
And he's been pressured less than any quarterback by far in college football this year. Part of that also is he has, I believe, one of the 10 fastest average time to throws in the country. When you're talking about Beck, he's not going to improvise late in plays. Can you find ways to make him hold the football just a little bit longer, right? If his normal average time to throw is around 2.4, can we get that to 2.8, 2.9? Can you make him hold the football an extra half beat? Maybe it's making a switch to maybe a little more press man coverage than Texas A&M is used to playing. Maybe it's just making him, even in the run game, maybe it's just on those RPOs, just make him hand it off and make them run into the teeth of the defense instead of letting Toney get in the open space. So that's going to be a big thing, right? right? Give Cassius Howell just that extra beat to get off the edge against a very good Miami offensive line, because Beck is not going to improvise. If he has to stand there, it's going to be a real problem for him.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that matchup. Hopefully we get a lot of Cassius Howell against Francis Mauigoa, two guys who should be first-round picks in the draft. This is going to be an awesome matchup to watch on Saturday. I'm looking at the Miami run game, and can Miami just find some answers and kind of take the pressure off of Carson Beck a little bit against, at times, what has been a vulnerable Texas A&M run defense this year. Listen, Miami's got a great offensive line and pass blocking and also run blocking this year too, and also a very good stable of running backs for the Hurricanes too. Hurricanes right now are 10th in run blocking grade on the year and 21st in successful run rate on the year. And their running back, the top running back, Mark Fletcher Jr., right now 11th in the FBS with a 90 rushing grade on the season. Miami gets very downhill in their run scheme. They run inside zone or gap runs 78% of the time. Now, Texas A&M, their run defense has been pretty solid overall this year, but right now, 5.5 yards per carry, the 6th worst in the Power 4, 3.9 yards after contact per carry allowed. That's the 4th worst mark in the entire country. The Aggies also allow 5.4 yards per carry on inside zone or gap runs, the scheme that Miami runs a lot. That's 115th in America too. Texas A&M, they have struggled to defend the run really on the second and third levels of the defense. I know Torian York is a fantastic linebacker too, but they got to bring their hard hats this week, the defensive backs and the linebackers for Miami in run defense, or else Miami can get right downhill on them in their run game and, make it a lot easier for Carson Beck in that offense.
No, absolutely. I think, you look at it's a team effort when you talk about the second level of this defense, right? So often, yes, the linebackers are in the spotlight. Torian York, Damian Sanford's been really good this year too. Waiting to see possibly if they get another linebacker back and Scooby Williams back from injury in this game, but it's going to take a team effort, and honestly, you're going to see some fun battles on that first level. Big Albert Regis on the inside is going to be a player to watch against Miami's interior offensive line, but Miami, you're right, they get downhill and they really play around again. I think it goes together, the RPO and everything they do with Tony on the outside. It plays into the box count, and Carson Beck is very good at reading the box count, reading the leverage of defenders, and deciding whether to hand it off or whether to throw it. That's going to be a big factor, and like you mentioned, Mark Fletcher is really a guy who's hard to tackle, especially in the box when everything gets muddy in there. So look, Miami on both sides of the ball is going to want to be really, really physical. We'll get to the other side, but that offensive line really is the first heartbeat of this offense.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to the Texas A&M offense and their run game against Miami's run defense. Dalton, what should we know about that matchup?
Yeah, to me, look, a lot of A&M's rushing metrics, a lot of them are pretty even. And you talk about, they run a lot of inside zone. They're going to get between the tackles. They got a big, big offensive line that really, they don't mess around a whole lot, right? Sometimes they'll get a front side puller going with one of these guards and they'll try to get out on the edge that way. But a lot of times it's just a matter of them wanting to be, like Miami, the more physical team downhill in the run game. One of the splits I do see, though, is they're a little more effective when they can run to the right side behind Armaj Reed-Adams at right guard and Demetrius Crownover at right tackle. Two guys who are very likely going to be NFL players very soon here. When they run to the right side, okay, when they get to the A-gap on the right side of the center and over towards that sideline, 86 rushing grade, 6.1 yards per carry. Again, that's behind Reed-Adams and Crownover. When they go to the other side, the left side, from that A-gap on the left side of the center to that sideline, that rushing grade goes down to 79.8 and only 4.7 yards per carry. Whichever, especially of these two edge rushers, Ruben Bain or Akeem Mesidor, is lined up on the right side of that offense over Crownover, I think they really have a lot of pressure on them to keep contained and then squeeze the gap down over Crownover to really prevent them creating those big plays off the right side. But that also goes with any sort of jet sweep or any option game that can come with that as well. But that's the one split to me that I see with Texas A&M's run game, is they're a little better running to their right than they are to their left behind those two NFL players on that right side. That's something I expect to be a focus, and it's going to be fun to see Crownover, especially at right tackle, against Bain and Mesidor, whichever one is there on any given play.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that matchup too. But I'm going to go talk about the Texas A&M passing game against Miami's pass defense, and really can Miami consistently pressure Marcel Reed with only a 4-man rush right now? Because, listen, we talk about it time and time again. Marcel Reed has been really inconsistent this year with his decision-making and his accuracy. His 18 turnover-worthy plays on the year, the 8th most among Power 4 quarterbacks. Only a 52% accurate pass rate this year. It's the 15th worst mark among 141 quarterbacks in the country this year. Now, Marcel Reed has some pretty interesting splits in PFF grade by situation right now. When Marcel Reed is kept clean, he has a 76 passing grade, which is okay overall, honestly. When he's under pressure, only a 47.8 passing grade. When he's not blitzed, though, you would think it'd be bad because when he's under pressure, it's actually 55.5. So you'd think that, when he's kept clean and not blitzed, it'd be similar. It's actually not. Only a 55.5 PFF grade when he's not blitzed. When he is blitzed, 81.7. So you're wondering, okay, wait, how is he so bad under pressure, but really good when he's blitzed? And how is he pretty good when he's kept clean, but not as good when he's not blitzed? Marcel Reed is really good from a clean pocket, but he kind of struggles to read defenses right now with 7+ defenders in coverage. He is capable, when he is blitzed, he is very capable of either throwing to his hot routes or taking off and running with his elite mobility too, if defenses send extra rushers. Therefore, I think the key for Miami's defense in this game is to get home with only 4 rushers against Marcel Reed. And listen, Miami does blitz at the 13th highest rate in the country at about 49%. It is not out of necessity, though, because right now Miami has a 93.2 defensive line grade, second in the nation, only behind, of course, Texas Tech. You obviously have Ruben Bain Jr., you have Akeem Mesidor, 2 guys who are going to be either, in Bain's case, a top 5 pick in the draft, in Mesidor's case, probably a 2nd or 3rd round pick in the draft. They're right now 2 of the 5 highest graded edge rushers in the nation. And when Miami does not blitz, it still has the 6th highest pressure rate in America at about 38% this year. So I think Miami would be smart to not send extra rushers in this game. Drop back in coverage with 7 guys in coverage and let your front 4, which has been one of the best defensive lines in the country, let them get after Marcel Reed. But that's easier said than done, though, because right now Texas A&M, 78.1 pass blocking grade. That's 20th in the country. They have a star left tackle in Trey Zune, 96.9 pass blocking grade on the year for Zune. That is 3.5 points higher than any other offensive lineman in the country. And actually, Dalton, he had a pretty interesting quote about Ruben Bain Jr. Going into this game. He said, quote, "I don't think he'll be a threat that we need to worry about too much right now." That was Trey Zune's quote about Ruben Bain Jr. Again, Bain, one of the highest graded edge rushers in the country. Zune has the highest pass blocking grade among all offensive linemen in the country too. So if Miami can get home with only 4 rushers against Marcel Reed, that will cause a lot of problems for Marcel Reed and the Aggies offense.
You're absolutely right. Bain and Mesidor have combined for 102 pressures and 15 sacks this year, and that's going to be the fun matchup. Ruben Bain, Akeem Mesidor versus Trey Zune and Demetrius Crownover. I mentioned Crownover in the run game. Well, he's going to be just as important in the passing game, and you're right. I think Miami, they've been blitzing more so as the year has gone on, I think just to mix up the looks and not constantly put all the pressure on those 4 guys up front, and especially those 2 edge rushers to make all of the pass rush production happen. But you're right. When you blitz a guy like Marcel Reed, 2 things it does. Number 1, it just opens up his mobility, right? If he feels the need to break the pocket early, then he's going to use his legs to beat the blitz. There's a lot of quarterbacks who do that. He is certainly one of them. And the other thing is it makes the windows just a little bit bigger, right? Because there's less guys in coverage. The more that you send, the more space there is out there to work with and just get the ball to one-on-one situations to Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion. But that's really the battle in any obvious passing situation. Really, any situation, to be honest with you, is going to be about when you play this Miami Hurricanes team, you have to find a way to control Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor. If they dominate this football game, they can shut you down. If you find your way around them, and you're not going to win every battle, but if you find your way around them enough, then you're going to be okay. But this game really is, in both sides, I think, to me, going to come down to the battle of those 4 players, Bain and Mesidor, Zune and Crownover.
Yep. Can't wait for this game on Saturday at noon. Dalton, ultimately, who will win in this battle between the two teams that beat Notre Dame this year, and who will move on to play Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl in the quarterfinals?
This is such a fun one. I think you're going to get a physical war, a trench war of a football game on both sides of the ball. Two great offensive lines, two great defensive lines with potential first-round picks on their hands. And I think the other thing this game comes down to, maybe even more so than the first game we talked about, which quarterback keeps their composure. Which one? It's that simple to me, especially with the pressure they're going to be under. And for Miami, it's going to be in a very loud road environment with the 12th man down there in Texas A&M. Turnover margin, I think, really could decide this game. We've seen in the past, even this year, say the Louisville game, and even when he really didn't need to make the one bad throw of the game against SMU, Carson Beck, when he's thrown out of rhythm and he starts pressing, he can get into those turnover spurts, right? Marcel Reed, same thing. We saw the first half against South Carolina. Things didn't look great against Texas either in that loss. So two quarterbacks who really need to keep their cool. I'm going to take the veteran in Carson Beck. I do think it's going to be a very defensive game. Obviously, we didn't get any road wins from the first four games last year in the playoffs. I'm going to take one here with Miami. Hard-fought defensive game. Eventually, whoever to me wins the turnover margin will win this game. I'm taking the Hurricanes 23-20.
Okay. So, yeah, like you mentioned before, no road wins last year in the first round of the playoff. I'm predicting 2 in the first round of the playoff. I also have Miami winning this game. I have it 28-24. I think Marcel Reed is going to struggle against this Hurricanes defense, and I think Carson Beck and, more importantly, the Miami run game will find some answers against Texas A&M's run defense. So I think the Hurricanes will win this game and set up a date with Ohio State in the quarterfinals at the Cotton Bowl. I have Miami 28-24 over Texas A&M. All right, before we move on to the final 2 games here in our first round preview, got to talk about the sponsor of the show. That is Western and Southern. Our game plan of the week is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Honestly, the game plans in those first 2 games are probably going to be very critical. In Miami, can they get home with only 4 rushers against Marcel Reed? And also for Oklahoma, can those blitzes work against Ty Simpson like they worked earlier on in the year? And just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so you can focus on winning today knowing tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out, building your dynasty, or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. All right, next game in our preview. It's actually the second rematch that we have in the first round of the playoff. That is number 11 Tulane at number 6 Ole Miss, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT, HBO Max, and True TV. It's getting broadcasted on all 3 of those right there. The winner of this game will take on number 3 Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in the college football playoff quarterfinals. Again, Ole Miss beat Tulane back in week 4 by a 45-10 final score in that game. Ole Miss making their first ever college football playoff appearance after finishing with an 11-1 record on the year. They will be without head coach Lane Kiffin, though, who, of course, left the program to take on the LSU job. Defensive coordinator Pete Golding was promoted to be the permanent head coach at Ole Miss. He'll make his debut on Saturday. Tulane also making their first ever playoff appearance with an 11-2 record and an American championship on the year. Like Lane Kiffin, John Sumrall is leaving the program for an SEC job. He's taking on the Florida job after this year. But unlike Lane Kiffin, John Sumrall will be coaching Tulane throughout their playoff run.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Tulane certainly has earned their way here, right? Some really good wins, especially over Northwestern and ACC champion Duke earlier in the season, getting a big win over North Texas in the American title game. And you mentioned it, see if they can avenge, their first big loss of the year at Ole Miss, 45-10 in that first game. And then Ole Miss, I think there's just this kind of air of mystery surrounding this team right now, right? Without Lane Kiffin in this game, you do have Pete Golding, like you mentioned, named the permanent head coach. And and Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator, is going to be allowed to coach this game along with several other offensive assistants. So I do wonder what the energy levels are going to look like and what the feel of this stadium and of this team is going to look like with everything they've gone through. We haven't talked about Ole Miss for anything on the field in 3 weeks. It's all been about Lane Kiffin and the coaching situation and everything happening there. I'm sure they would love to just get back on the field and play football at this point.
It's pretty wild that Pete Golding's first ever game as a head coach at any level is in the college football playoff. It's pretty wild. So we'll see how he does against Tulane in the first round. Dalton, let's start off with that Tulane offense, actually. You have the Tulane run game against Ole Miss's run defense. What should you know about that matchup?
So when you looked at this run game earlier in the year, actually their leading rusher is their quarterback, Jake Retzloff, and he really went down to the American, and it felt like John Summerall and this coaching staff told him, look, you might be a solid athlete in the Big 12. You're a really, really good athlete in the American, and you can really take off in the read option game and scrambling and do some things on the ground, right? He leads all quarterbacks in the nation with 16 rushing touchdowns, but had tweaked his knee a little bit against Memphis and really had to beat Memphis with his arm. And then the last few games, you haven't seen him run quite as much. He did have 16 carries, finally felt good against North Texas in that game. But to me, the difference in this run game right now, the last month or so, has been the emergence of the redshirt freshman running back, Jamari McClure. When you look at his last 4 games, an 81 rushing grade, 405 rushing yards, just over 100 per game, 6.8 yards per carry, 14 missed tackles forced, 10 explosives. A lot of those numbers in the top 15 in the country across his last 4 games. It was Javen Gordon who was really the workhorse in the backfield earlier in the season, but McClure, 5'10", 190 pounds, a little bit more speed, and a guy who gives him a better threat off the edge. I believe he only had 3 carries in this first game. They just didn't use him much the first half of the season, but he's earned his keep in this backfield. And now that Retzloff is 100% healthy as a read option threat again, and McClure is really a guy who can threaten the edges more than Gordon did earlier in the season, I'm curious to see how this run game looks, possibly maybe with these 2 guys healthy at the best they have all season, right? So I think Ole Miss and their edge players especially are going to have to really do a good job of keeping contained against both McClure and Retzloff, because Tulane's gotten a lot better in the second half of the year running to the edges.
Yeah, I'm looking at Jake Retzloff in this one too, and looking at the passing game against Ole Miss's pass defense, and really, can the Green Wave find answers for the man coverage and the blitzes that they're probably going to see a lot from Ole Miss in this one? Because Tulane, on the year, has had a really efficient passing game. Right now, they're 15th in the country in successful pass rate on the year, but they had easily their worst performance of the year against Ole Miss back in Week 4. In that game, Jake Retzloff had season lows in completion percentage, only at about 29%. He only had 56 passing yards. Again, another season low for him, and only a 40.8 passer rating. Again, season low for Jake Retzloff. The Rebels usually like to sit back in zone coverage without blitzing too often. Only a 17% man coverage rate, which is 106th in the country. Only about a 28% blitz rate, which is 119th in the country. But against Tulane, they ran man coverage about 27% of the time and blitzed Jake Retzloff 42% of the time as well. The Green Wave, you watch the tape, they struggled to separate against Ole Miss's defensive backs. Jake Retzloff had a season high, average time to throw of 3.3 seconds in that game. Tulane had a 56.2 pass blocking grade and a 54.5% pressure rate allowed. Each of those numbers were their worst marks of the season too. And Dalton, last year at BYU, when we interviewed Jake Retzloff, we asked him, hey, you are so good, man, when defenses don't blitz you. Why do you prefer it that way? He said, listen, I know how to attack defenses when it's only a 4-man rush at me. It gets a lot more complicated when defenses send 5 or more rushers at me. Ole Miss knew that, and they blitzed the hell out of him in that Week 4 game. So I expect Pete Golding to do the same thing against Retzloff in this playoff game. If Retzloff and the Green Wave don't have answers for those blitz packages this weekend, it could be another ugly performance for Tulane's passing game.
And I'm glad you mentioned you need guys to separate on the outside. They're really going to need their receivers to step up. They've gotten better as the year has gone on. Guys like Amari Hayes, Shaz Preston, Anthony Brown-Stevens, they've kind of cobbled together this receiving core as the year has gone on. And the passing game has gotten better, but that is going to be a big key. If Pete Golding is going to send pressure at Retzloff in obvious passing situations, one, can you keep him contained and keep him from running the football? Because those scrambles are really where he's won a lot this year. But two, those guys have to separate early in the play. It's been a bit inconsistent at times, and you mentioned it against Ole Miss. It was really inconsistent. You're playing SEC defensive backs now. You got to find a way to win one-on-one in those situations.
So let's move on to Ole Miss, Dalton. Their passing game against Tulane's pass defense. I want to start off, though, Andrew Harbaugh in the chat asking, how do we like Ole Miss's chances without Trinidad Chambliss if he does enter the portal? I don't expect, if he does transfer, I don't expect it to be until after whatever Ole Miss is done with the playoff. I don't think that he's going to leave the program or anything like that. So I think he will be playing in this game if he does leave Ole Miss, if he does get a waiver and move on somewhere else. I don't know.
Then we're back to Austin Simmons, aren't we?
It
just comes full circle, huh?
I do not. He's going to play in this game, I expect, and I don't expect him to leave Ole Miss until after the playoff run. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Lane Kiffin, if he does go to LSU with Lane Kiffin will be willing to wait until after the playoff run for Ole Miss. So I don't think it's going to be a conversation until after the year's over for Ole Miss.
As if there's not enough controversy surrounding all that whole situation right now. Yeah.
So with Trinidad Chambliss, what should we know about the Ole Miss pass game against Tulane's pass defense?
Well, I hope he doesn't transfer in the next 3 days because I made this whole part of the presentation about him, as I've made many things about him, because Trinidad Chambliss is really the reason that they are here right now. Now, the thing that you see with Trinidad Chambliss on tape, an excellent thrower of the deep ball, the second best completion percentage, just over 56% this season. Second best completion percentage in the Power 4 on deep balls, only behind who, Max?
It was Julian Sayin?
Julian Sayin from Ohio State, the third best deep passing grade in the nation in the Power 4 on deep passes, behind Sayin and Dante Moore from Oregon. We'll talk more about him in a bit, but I think that's really what Tulane has to prevent here. They have not been great this year covering the deep ball. They are 106th in the nation in coverage grade against 20-plus yard throws. They've allowed 27 deep completions this year, the 9th most in the country. The only interesting part about it for Tulane's defense, they have the second most interceptions behind, I believe, Florida State this year with 8 on deep passes. So they take their chances. They try to get to the football. And even look, North Texas in the American title game, they had some opportunities, and Drew Mestemaker just missed. But in the first game against Tulane, Trinidad Chambliss completed 5 of his 6 deep balls, and the one that was incomplete was a clean drop that should have been a touchdown from Harrison Wallace. So they have to be able to be more disciplined on the back end. Don't bite up so hard if you're the safeties on play-action fakes. I know they're going to run the football with Kejuan Lacey, but if you let all these guys on the outside, whether it's Winston Watkins, whether it's Harrison Wallace, Dejon Stribling, Caden Lee, if you let those guys get over the top, Chambliss is going to take those shots, and he has not missed very many of them all season. Again, 5 for 6 on deep balls in the first game. The one incompletion was a drop. Tulane has to prevent the home runs. They have to make Chambliss work for it in front of them.
And I'm looking at Chambliss, too, and Kejuan Lacey, of course, for the Ole Miss run game against Tulane's run defense. Listen, Kejuan Lacey has been the workhorse for Ole Miss's offense this entire year. The true sophomore leads the Power 4 with 20 rushing touchdowns on the year. Also leads the Power 4 with 86 broken tackles on the year, too. And yet, it wasn't even Kejuan Lacey that ran wild on Tulane back in the Week 4 win. That would be Trinidad Chambliss, who had 113 rushing yards against the Green Wave. That was 46 more than any other game that he had this year. Kejuan Lacey was still very solid on the ground with 68 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Ole Miss combined in that game ran for 241 yards and averaged 5.9 yards per carry against Tulane. Their run game was excellent against the Green Wave, and that kind of embodied a major issue for Tulane all year, which has been their run defense, because right now the Green Wave are 102nd in the country in run defense grade and 107th in the country in successful run rate allowed. If they don't perform better against both Kejuan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss this week in run defense, the Rebels once again could run all over them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, to me, another part that plays a part for Tulane's defense here is, to me, when I watch them and teams start to get up-tempo and really speed things up on them, I think that's a problem. And that certainly is a part of Ole Miss offense, the tempo and the fast pace that they play with to create those explosive plays, to just get you thinking a little faster than you want to. I think Tulane has struggled in those situations, and you mentioned it. You have Lacey as the consistent workhorse, and then you have Chambliss as the rushing threat at quarterback. It makes things very difficult. And even adding to those rushing yards is any time that Chambliss feels uncomfortable, which wasn't very often in the first game game against Tulane, he can take off and scramble and pick up first downs himself. He's so poised back there in the pocket. So you really do have a big two-dimensional problem here if you're the Tulane defense. And I think the tempo and the way that Ole Miss uses it all, and I think it is going to be a big factor that Charlie Weiss Jr. gets to come back and call the plays as somebody familiar with the offense and familiar with, the chemistry with Chambliss and everything. So a lot of weapons, a lot of things for Tulane's defense to deal with, and certainly they have to be better than the first time around, giving up 45 points.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dalton, ultimately, will Ole Miss beat Tulane for the second time this year and set up another rematch in the playoff against Georgia in the quarterfinal round, or will Tulane pull off a massive upset and avenge their loss?
I think Ole Miss is going to come out in this game on their home field feeling a little bit pissed off with just the way that everything's gone the last 3 weeks. All of the drama, even it overshadowed the Mississippi State game even, and they played such a fantastic game in a rivalry game on the road and really put Mississippi State away with very little problem. I think Chambliss is going to go out there with something to prove. I think the entire team, man, they're going to rally around Pete Golding. They're going to rally behind this home crowd, and they're going to get the job done. I think Tulane has gotten better as the year has gone on. I do think their offense is better and more settled in than it was in the first matchup between these two, but I just don't know that their defense has enough to deal with both the talent and the pace of what Ole Miss is going to bring at them. And I don't think Chambliss is going to be nervous on a big stage. I know it's a much smaller stage, but I think winning a Division II national title last year and the experience that brings of winning a championship of some kind, right? It's never easy to make a full, in that case, I think it was 14 or 15-0 championship run. I don't think the stage is too big for them. I think Ole Miss is solidly the favorite in this game, and I think their offense carries the day. I'll take Ole Miss 35-17.
Yeah, I actually also have it as an 18-point difference. I have it 38-20. Ole Miss beating Tulane. It won't be as lopsided as the 45-10 score that we saw back in Week 4, but I still think the Rebels will cruise to a victory over the Green Wave, and I think Ole Miss will set up another rematch with Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in the quarterfinal round. Georgia's the only team who has beaten Ole Miss this year, too. So it should be a really fun rematch in the quarterfinal round if we get it with Ole Miss playing Georgia. All right, the final game in our preview show is number 12, James Madison, at number 5, Oregon. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TNT, HBO Max, and True TV. The winner of this game takes on number 4 Texas Tech in the quarterfinals at the Orange Bowl. The Ducks are back in the playoff for the second straight year after posting an 11-1 record with their only loss of the season coming at the hands of the number 1 team in the country in Indiana. They are losing their offensive coordinator in Will Stein and their defensive coordinator in Tosh Lupoi, both of them taking head coaching jobs in the Power 4 after this year, with Stein going to Kentucky and Lupoi going to his alma mater in Cal. But both of them will be sticking with Oregon throughout their playoff run. The Dukes, meanwhile, are in the college football playoff for the first time in program history, finishing 12-1 on the year with a Sun Belt championship. And like Tulane, their head coach, Bob Chesney, is leaving the program after this year. Chesney, of course, taking the UCLA job, but also, like John Sumrall at Tulane, he is sticking with James Madison throughout his playoff run too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you've got a lot of intrigue. It's funny, these last 2 games and just how much is happening with both coaching staffs, right? Lanning's going to have to replace both coordinators. Obviously, Billy Napier taking over at James Madison whenever this run is over. And then you mentioned in the first game with Lane Kiffin and John Sumrall on their situations. So really interesting backdrop. Obviously, something we're going to see more of in future playoffs, right? When you have a good team, especially one that wasn't expected to make the playoffs, say like a Tulane or a JMU, teams are going to come sniping.
Also,
right?
I forgot to mention it, Colin Klein at Texas A&M leaving for Kansas State, too.
Also true. Yeah.
After the playoff run.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've heard, it sounds like he's staying, but we've even heard plenty of drama surrounding Kalen DeBoer over there at Alabama. We're pretty sure he's staying.
Yeah, he's going to stay, I think. Yeah.
I think so. He seemed to announce that he's not going anywhere, but certainly plenty of coaching drama around all of these teams, and it creates an interesting backdrop for these games.
Definitely. All right, let's start off with the James Madison offense, Dalton. You have the passing game against what's been an elite Oregon pass defense this year.
So at the center of it all for James Madison is their quarterback, Alonze Barnett, and he tore his ACL in the last regular season game of their 2024 season against Marshall last year. In the first half of the year, you could really feel like for a couple of factors, one, recovering from the injury, and two, keep in mind that his backup, Matt Sluka, came over from UNLV, but he came over because Bob Chesney was his coach at Holy Cross, and he came over to compete for the starting job. Eventually, because Barnett was the more accurate passer, Barnett won the job, and he's really been hot as he's gotten it back to 100% health in the second half of the season. Since week 8, he's got the 8th best PFF grade in college football among qualified quarterbacks, an 88 PFF grade, 9.5 yards per attempt, 11.5 yard average depth of target. This guy is a big game hunter. He wants to throw the ball down the field, especially down the middle of the field, and lately, with a 1.5% turnover-worthy play rate, he's been getting it done without putting the ball in danger. Obviously, this James Madison offense, as you're going to talk about, is very much based in the run game with Wayne Knight and Alonze Barnett. But if he can take those shots, if they can run the ball enough to get safeties, Dylan Thieneman and this great group of safeties to creep up into the box, what they want to do is take shots between the numbers well down the field. Barnett throws an awesome deep ball, and he's been in a really good rhythm with it in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I have the James Madison run game, which also includes Barnett, too, against the Oregon run defense. And really, can the Dukes rely on the run in this one? Because James Madison's offense is really centered around his ability to run the football. They run the ball about 59% of the time, which is 9th in the country. And honestly, for good reason. James Madison's had an elite run game this year. Right now, they're 2nd in team rushing grade, and they're 5th in EPA per run this year. It's headlined by Wayne Knight and, of course, Alonze Barnett, too. Wayne Knight has over 1,200 rushing yards this year, 10th among all running backs in the country. Barnett has 14 rushing touchdowns this year, tied for 7th among all quarterbacks in America. But Oregon's run defense has been more than solid this year. Right now, they're 35th in run defense grade and 3rd in the country in tackling grade. They've only allowed an explosive run on about 7% of attempts. That's the lowest rate in the entire Power 4. If Oregon performs that well in run defense in this game against a really good James Madison run game, it's going to be really hard for me to imagine how James Madison's offense, which is so centered around the run, can find anything going against an elite Oregon pass rush and secondary too. So James Madison, if they want to have a chance at winning this game, their run game has to perform against what's been a really good Oregon run defense.
For sure. I mean, for me, it starts with just an outstanding front four that Dan Lanning's got and Tosh Lapoi's got on this defense. When you look at Mateo Uiagalelei and Tatum Tuioti off the edge, and then those two big defensive tackles, man, they are so important to this run defense. Amari Washington and Bear Alexander, they are an absolute nightmare to try to block in. What they create, opening up gaps for Bryce Betcher at linebacker and Dylan Thieneman, even at safety, flying down into the box, what they do to make those guys' lives behind them so much easier. That's why they prevent those explosive runs, because these guys, they can two-gap. You got to double-team those two on the inside to get around them. They don't give any ground on the offensive line, and the biggest thing is they don't allow offensive linemen to get to the second level. Betcher's got so many free passes to make tackles. Thieneman's got so many free passes to make tackles. Everybody on that second level has free reign to the football. That's how you prevent explosive runs, is you keep your second-level defenders free in the box.
Absolutely. For anyone wondering who watched our playoff previews, by the way, and when we previewed Oregon, we said the biggest weakness in the team has been the run defense. Well, that's because everything else on Oregon is so freaking elite that Oregon, who is 35th in run defense grade, is the only thing you could say, hey, in like 1 or 2 games this year, it was kind of an issue, but not really. That's how good Oregon is all around. That the one thing that we just praised for Oregon, the run defense, that's, I guess, the one thing that they've had in some games a little bit of an issue this year.
And
too.
Look at some of the teams that they've played up front who can really run the football, right? You look at a team, Iowa, we think the best offensive line in the country. Penn State can still really run the football, and in that game, they got back in the game running the football, right? Even a team like Washington, they've got 2 dynamic threats like Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman. So honestly, it's what makes this Oregon team so dangerous, is that we're picking and prodding at this as their weakness, and they're still very, very much above average and allow the lowest explosive run rate in the country, playing in the Big Ten, playing against a lot of these better teams. Even Indiana, they didn't have some crazy rushing day against them. Oregon in the trenches is outstanding. Indiana, 3.3 yards per carry. Now, I'm not even including sacks there.
Yeah.
I mean, so you look at what Oregon does, especially, again, to me, their ability for Alexander and Washington to free up their second-level defenders. They're free from offensive linemen getting to the second level and hitting them. This Oregon run defense is still very good. We only call it a weakness relative to everything else, but they're just fantastic all the way around. They are.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the Oregon offense, Dalton. You have the run game for Oregon, which, like the run defense, has been really, really good this year.
And for as much as we've talked all year about Oregon's offensive line and pass protection and Dante Moore and how good he's been, as a lot of years where he would have been a Heisman candidate, he's been so good. Maybe a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. This team can run the living hell out of the football, man. They're first in the nation with a 94.6 rushing grade, 6.2 yards per carry this season. And you look at their ability to run any scheme. They can run zone. They run a lot of counter. When they get to the edges of your defense, they're extremely dangerous. Kenyon Sadiq flying around as a lead blocker, right? Considered kind of undersized for a tight end, but that doesn't take away any of the aggressiveness that he plays with, And then you look at the multiple threats in the backfield. Noah Whittington, Jordan Davison, the true freshman, D'Air Hill, been really good. Three different guys with 90 rushing grades. 3 of them on the same team. And then if they run any read option concepts, Dante Moore can keep it. He's a decent enough athlete himself. But this James Madison defense also is really good. Very good in run defense. 93.7 run defense grade. 4th in the nation. 3.4 yards per carry allowed. 2nd in the country, I believe, only behind Texas Tech. That's the company they're keeping in run defense. And I really think it is their ability to prevent you from getting to the edges. A great group of defensive ends, starting with Sahir West and Xavier Holmes on the edges, but I think also Trent Hendrick, their highest graded player, their middle linebacker, is going to play a huge part in this, because I do think one of the big problems you have when you play against Oregon is when they start pulling those linemen around, when you talk about especially Emmanuel Pregnon and Dave Iuli, the 2 guards, when they start pulling these guys around and they try to get to the edges, especially with some of these counter schemes, and then Kenyon Sadiq lead blocking for all these great runners, and those runners can create yards after contact too. That is, again, on your second-level defenders. I think if James Madison is going to hang around and run defense in this game against the best running team that they've seen all year, it's going to be Trent Hendrick at linebacker, who's got to have a huge game. He's been doing it all season, but also those edge defenders got to keep contained as much as possible. To stand a chance in this game, to me, for James Madison's run defense, as good as they've been, they got to be outstanding on the edges and getting over the top and not losing contained on just the army of running backs that Oregon has this season.
Yeah, I just realized that this game matches up the top 2 teams in the country in rushing grade. Oregon's number 1, James Madison's number 2. So 2 teams that are really damn good at running the football.
And for as much as we talk about Dante Moore, and hopefully they're going to get Decorian Moore and Gary Bryant back at receiver and be full tilt in the passing game.
By the way, did you see? So those 2 are practicing. Did you also see, suited up in pads, Evan Stewart was at practice? Don't know if he'll play in this game, maybe the Texas Tech game later on, but we could see finally an Evan Stewart return this year too.
If they're getting more loaded at receiver, that's one thing. But this is a team, for as much as the spotlight is on those guys in the passing game, they run it almost 53% of the time. This is a balanced football team. And in games, and this is why in games where Dante Moore didn't have all his weapons, he didn't have Gary Bryant, Evan Stewart all season, Decorian Moore, the true freshman sensation, they can still just get behind this offensive line and run the football. This is an extremely balanced offense, and they are going to want to prove they can run the ball. Oh, we've heard all about, the PFF college football shows talking about how good James Madison's run defense is. Well, let's go and prove them wrong and get behind one of the best offensive lines in the country. Believe a Joe Moore finalist also, along with Iowa, and I think Indiana is it 3 Big Ten offensive lines?
I think it was Indiana too.
Man, oh man, look at the offensive lines in the Big Ten, but Oregon is the one that's still here, and it's because they have such a balanced effort. But I'm telling you, when they run between the tackles, it's their usual Oregon inside zone schemes, but I get really scared when I watch this Oregon run game and they get off the edges and they get Kenyon Sadiq out in space blocking on the second level. That's when they get dangerous. If I'm James Madison, the big first concern, as always, is to keep contained, make them run into the teeth of the defense.
Yep, I'm looking at Oregon's passing game against James Madison's pass defense, and really, I think for James Madison, can they get home on Dante Moore in this one? Because he has been stellar in his first year as Oregon's starting quarterback, which is why he's a projected top 5 pick in the 2026 NFL draft if he does declare for this year's draft. He's a redshirt sophomore, 91.2 passing grade on the year, 2nd in the country behind only Julian Sayin from Ohio State right now. The one game, though, where Dante Moore struggled was in the loss to Indiana, where he had a season-low passing grade at about 45 and only a 72% adjusted completion rate, again, a season low for him. In that game, Oregon allowed a 36% pressure rate, which was their worst mark of the year by 19%. So before that, for Oregon, their worst game in terms of pressure rate allowed was about 16%, which is insane numbers for Oregon this year. It's really important, I think, for this one for Oregon to keep Dante Moore clean. James Madison is third in the nation in coverage grade this year, and they run man coverage at the 12th highest rate in America at about 39%. But Dante Moore is fifth in the country in passing grade against man coverage with an 87.3 passing grade. And like I mentioned before, his receiving core is starting to get fully healthy right now with maybe Evan Stewart this week. I don't think we'll see him this week, maybe in the future, though, of the playoff. The Dukes, meanwhile, are also ninth in the country in pass rushing grade, but Oregon has the best pass blocking grade in America at an 89 mark this year. So James Madison has to get home on Dante Moore because he has been elite when kept clean, elite against blitzes, and elite when he's not blitzed. But when he is under pressure, that's when he's a little more normal. So I think James Madison has to get consistent pressure against Dante Moore, but easier said than done, though, because Oregon has the best offensive line in America at protecting the quarterback.
They need the best effort of the season from their defensive line, right? That's the unit that really dominated the Sun Belt title game against Troy. And then you mentioned all the man coverage they run. Outstanding trio of cornerbacks. When you talk about Justin Eaglin and Elijah Culp on the outside, and then DJ Barksdale on the inside, those three guys have combined for 6 interceptions and 20 pass breakups this year. You get to the football when you're in man-to-man coverage, but they have not seen a receiving core this year with the depth that Oregon has, obviously, right? They saw Louisville and Chris Bell earlier. He made one big play on him, but otherwise they held him down pretty quiet, even though they lost that game. But this is a really good secondary. They're sound. They play a lot of man coverage. We'll see if they bring that same approach against all of the weapons that Oregon has. And then you mentioned it, Oregon's offensive line in pass protection is an absolute weapon, because the Indiana game was really the only game we saw more under any sort of pressure, right? And that's Indiana. I mean, they're right now the number 1 team in the country, right? So talking about the best pass blocking grade for Oregon in the nation, and Dante Moore, not only is he good back there when he's clean, but he's attacking down the field. I mentioned it earlier in the show. Highest deep passing grade in the country, and that's with a lot of his weapons being out for a good chunk of this season. If they're fully loaded at receiver and Dante Moore is clean back there, guess what? He is taking shots down the field, and Oregon, as much as any team in the country, they make you respect everything in their offense. Yep. You want to creep up and stop the run? Deal. We're throwing it over your head. Dante Moore is going to rip it down the seams of the defense. You want to sit back and try to prevent those explosives? I got 3 really good backs who can run the football behind this offensive line. They've got a little bit of everything. That's what makes them so dangerous, is they have balance, and we'll see if this James Madison defense is up to the test.
Yep. Ultimately, Dalton, who will move on to play Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl in the quarterfinal round?
I think there is a chance that James Madison's defense could make this kind of interesting. They could bring this into a phone booth early because they've got a lot of talent. This is a really talented and fundamentally sound defense. But what I worry about, something you mentioned in the run game, and they're also very good with it in the passing game, is Oregon's ability to prevent explosive plays, right? And if Wayne Knight isn't able to get the explosive runs going on the ground against this front, then you put Barnett in obvious passing situations, and Oregon, a team that's very, very good at preventing the deep ball from being completed. You take that away, can Barnett manufacture offense otherwise? I'm worried about the way that he played in this whole passing game played against Troy in that Sun Belt title game, because Oregon's a whole different animal now than Troy, right? And it seems like there's a lot of hit or miss sometimes in this JMU passing game. I think it can be physical early, but I have a feeling that Oregon's defense, because they can prevent explosive plays at such a high level, and I don't know that their receivers are going to be able to get open down the field against an outstanding Oregon secondary. We haven't even mentioned the true freshman Brandon Finney out there at corner. He's been great all year too. I worry that this JMU offense, as the game goes on, gets a little bit stagnant. I think their defense can compete, but I think eventually the dam breaks. Oregon 31, James Madison 13.
I have it 34-17, Oregon beating James Madison. I'm completely with you. I think the Duke's defense could keep it interesting early, but I just don't think James Madison has the offensive firepower to ultimately pull off a colossal upset in this game against what's been an elite Oregon defense. How about this, Dalton? If Oregon wins this game, it'll be their first college football playoff win since the first ever college football playoff back in 2014 when they won in that game too.
Oh, that was when they beat Florida State.
Yep.
That was Jameis versus Mariota.
Yes.
That was it. Who did they lose to? Who was the title game that
Ohio
year?
State.
Was that the Cardale Jones year?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Wow, what a game.
That was their last playoff win because, of course, they lost last year in the first playoff game they played last year, too.
Jameis versus Mariota. Yeah, I remember that game. That game got ugly.
So Oregon trying to win their first playoff game since, 11 years ago now in 2014. Oregon, I think, will win this game and move on to play Texas Tech in the quarterfinal round at the Orange Bowl. We're actually not done here on this show just yet. In just a second, we're going to go over our full bracket predictions for the college football playoff, who we think is going to win the national title this year. But before we do that, we want to show you guys a video on PFF's incredible player prop tool.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok rules sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff. Because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
Once again, that PFF player prop tool available for 30% off right now and use the promo code HOLIDAY30. All right, Dalton. Now, let's show our bracket predictions for the college football playoff. Do you want to go first or you want me to go first for this?
I can go first. I can.
By the way, we reserve the right to change our predictions based on what happens in the games.
Oh, I do it all the time. I will bail on this in a heartbeat. if there's something that I see in this round that I think is carrying over, I will bail on this bracket in a heartbeat. It's the same. Well, it's theme here. Remember, my preseason national title pick was Alabama.
Still alive. You picked against them. You picked Oklahoma. You gave up on that quick.
Listen, I will fully admit I am one to bail. But
I would have gone down on the ship there.
But if I was making this whole bracket right now, here's how I would have it. Once again, my first round winners: Oklahoma, Miami, Ole Miss, and Oregon on the top side there. Now we'll start at the bottom. Ohio State, Miami. That'll be a really fun football game, right? To see what kind of challenge that Miami's defense can give Julian Sayin and the Buckeyes. But I will take Ohio State in that game. Georgia, Ole Miss in a rematch this time without Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss, a great effort the first time around, but I think Georgia understands, and they're playing their best defense in the country right now. They understand what Ole Miss wants to do to them. I think we will get Ohio State, Georgia on the bottom side there, 2-3 in the semifinal. I like Indiana over Oklahoma. I think that's a point where all of a sudden Oklahoma's defense just not enough to carry them, right? You get an equal, if not better, defense in Indiana. It's going to be tough for them. And then Oregon, Texas Tech, which I think could be one of the games of the year.
Yeah,
you talk about a war in the trenches like we've been mentioning. I think that could be one of the best football games to see all year. I'm actually going to take the Ducks. I'm going to go on the offensive side. Their offensive line, I think, can hold up. Maybe one of the very few that can hold up against that Texas Tech team. And I'll take Dante Moore over Baron Morton there. Then we get a rematch. Indiana against Oregon once again. And we talked about the struggles Oregon had in the trenches. If we get there for the moment, I'm going to take Fernando Mendoza and Indiana to go ahead of the Oregon Ducks into the national championship game. A preview maybe of QB 1 and 2 in the NFL draft. That'll be a lot of fun. And on the bottom side, and you couldn't ask for something more classic on the bottom there than Ohio State, Georgia. I'm going to take Ohio State. I'm going to take Julian Sayin and those wide receivers to get it done against Georgia's defense, which sets up the ultimate rematch of such a great game the first time around. The reason that Indiana is the 1 seed, the reason that Ohio State is the 2 and did not win the Big Ten title, their only loss of the year, Ohio State, Indiana in the final. I'm going to take Ohio State in the rematch, but it will be an outstanding football game once again.
All right, so we actually have a very similar bracket. Only a couple changes I have, though. My bracket, once again, first round, I had Oregon winning. I had Alabama, not Oklahoma winning, so it kind of changes from you, Dalton. I also have Ole Miss winning, and I have Miami winning like you. On the bottom, I have Ohio State beating Miami. I cannot wait to watch that. I think that Miami pass rush could give Julian Sayin some issues in that game, but I think ultimately Ohio State's offense and defense will be too much for Carson Beck and the Hurricanes to handle. Like you, I also have Georgia beating Ole Miss. I think without Lane Kiffin, it's going to be tough for Ole Miss to win against Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs the way they're playing right now. I think Georgia will once again beat Ole Miss. Alabama against Indiana. I think Indiana is going to beat Alabama in that one. I just think Alabama's offense, which has just been so reliant on Ty Simpson against Indiana's defense, is going to be a struggle as well. And then the top one, I actually have Texas Tech beating Oregon. Now, I do think Oregon might be the better all-around or more complete roster, I should say, but I think the Texas Tech defense, man, it's so freaking good that, you know what? Indiana beat Dante Moore by getting after him a lot. Texas Tech has the best D-line in the country. And I think that against Oregon's offensive line, that is the matchup of the year in Texas Tech's D-line against Oregon's offensive line. So I think Texas Tech will get it done against Oregon and move on to the semifinals. I have, like you, Ohio State against Georgia. Should be an awesome, awesome game between two massive brands in college football. Like you, though, I also think Ohio State will take down the Bulldogs, the more complete team. And like you, I also have Indiana winning the semifinals, this time against Texas Tech. I think Indiana will get it done. A more complete team the Texas Tech is right now. And I think Indiana against Ohio State in the national title. I'm taking Ohio State to win back-to-back national titles this year and get revenge on the Hoosiers.
I'm just once again with just the majority of these teams so impressed with all of the great defenses that we get to see in this playoff. I mean, you run down the list: Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon. I mean, even all the way down to, double-digit seeds like Miami and James Madison. Look, they've gotten here because the best part of their team is their defense. And I do think their defense can go out there and at least compete and give Oregon some problems early in this game. We're seeing really most of the best defenses in college football, and I think you're going to get some absolute wars, maybe some lower scoring games than we might usually get in the playoff. And you're right. If we get Oregon, Texas Tech in that next round, man, if you get Dante Moore against that Texas Tech defense, and then if they win, you get Fernando Mendoza against that Texas Tech defense, man, oh man, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I can't wait to watch all of that. Again, playoff starts this Friday, goes into Saturday as well. Our show will be on Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time to break down the 4 games in the first round. But we also have another show coming out this week, too. This Friday, finally, we'll be doing that mock draft that we've been promising you guys for the last few weeks. I promise we actually will do the mock draft this time. Again, Sunday morning show for the review. And then actually we're going to do a Monday preview show, not a Tuesday preview show. Kind of a later start on Monday, just kind of trying to get everyone back home for Christmas as well. But can't wait to do all that with you guys. It's going to be a very, very fun weekend of college football in the first round of the playoff. For our producers back there, and Eli and Tyler, for Dalton, Wasserman, I'm Max Chadwick. Again, we'll see you guys on Friday with our next 2026 NFL mock draft.